Hi everyone. Okay, so we're going to expand on seeing things through the filter, so that cognitive distortion or that cognitive trick, our brain trick that has us seeing things through a filter based on our own beliefs and our own thoughts. And so, and because of that, we just see a small slice, and sometimes it's not even accurate because we're not seeing the big picture. We're not able to take other people's perspectives into mind when we have that bias or that distortion taking place. So today we're going to talk about something that can be very uncomfortable, but I just feel it's necessary, and it's hidden biases. And so most of us like to think that we treat everybody equally, or the way that we want to be treated, right? The golden rule. And yet there are still these biases that we might have, and it's important to uncover them. They can be unconscious and they can be hidden. And so when they're hidden and they're unconscious, then it's like we might act on them without even having any awareness of them. And if we deny the fact that that's possible, then it's almost like they can become rooted and even more harmful than if we can accept that, oh wow, I might have these biases that I'm not proud of or I don't like, but then we can be more intentional about working through them, and so that they don't almost become like this toxic thing in our life. So like, okay, this might be a weird example, but it's just coming to me. Let's say that you don't clean your room, and let's say that you had some milk in there and you left this cup of milk in there, and you're going to pretend, because you don't want to deal with it, that it's not in there. It's going to smell, and it's going to make your room yucky, and you're not going to want to be in there. So basically, when we're in denial, or when we pretend like something isn't a problem, it can make it worse. Whereas if you like right away would have been like, oh yeah, well that milk sitting there for a day is going to get gross and moldy and smelly, then we can take care of it. And then it can become more like a good environment because you're taking care of it. And so you're not in denial. You're able to take proactive steps so that you can make the environment better. Okay, so that was just something that came to my head. That might be a really weird example. I don't know. Maybe it'll make sense. We have these hidden biases, and sometimes they can be towards ages. They can be towards certain ways people look. See, that's why this can be uncomfortable, because we all like to love everyone, right? And we don't want to think of ourselves as being that way. And so it's just important to understand that that can be a thing where we might actually unconsciously be treating people different because we might see them as outside of our group. And that's that evolutionary psychology aspect of like people in your social group you see as similar to you, and then people outside of your social group you might see as different. And so then that's where a bias might come. And so I'm going to read some definitions too of like a stereotype. So a stereotype is an exaggerated belief, image, or distorted truth about a person or group, a generalization that allows for little or no individual difference or social variance. So sometimes they're based on images in mass media or reputations passed on by parents, peers, or other members of society. So they can be positive or they can be negative. And so that would be a stereotype. Then we can get into prejudice. So that's an opinion, a prejudgment or attitude about a group or its individual members. A prejudice can be positive, but in our usage, it usually refers to negative attitudes about a group or individual members. And so prejudice are often accompanied by ignorance, fear, or hatred. Prejudice are formed by a complex psychological process that begins with attachment to a close circle of acquaintance as in-group, such as. So prejudice are often accompanied by ignorance, fear, or hatred, and they're formed by a complex psychological process that begins with the attachment to a close circle of acquaintance in an in-group, such as a family. And then they're often aimed at out-groups. So you see separation. You see like they're different than us. And then it can lead to discrimination. And that's where we treat people unequally because of their group membership. And so it can be like these slight differences in how we treat people, or it can be big where it's like hate crimes or something like that. And so we have to be aware of how our brain works. And this is kind of a heavier topic, right? But I do believe it's important when we're going to address it, because we're not afraid to talk about hard things. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to understand that the more that we can have open conversations, because like one of the things is it can be accompanied by ignorance. So the only way to transcend that is to have awareness and to have education around it, and to be aware of our own biases, those hidden biases that we have. And so because once we become aware and we accept it, then we can take the milk out of our room. We can address it. We can make things better. We can educate ourselves on the differences in groups, and we can do the work of seeing ourselves and other people, and because something that sometimes happens is we might not necessarily have a prejudice or a belief that we're better than somebody else, but then we might minimize another group's experiences, and because if we lump all of us in together, that can be minimizing the struggles that some groups have come to. So this is super, super complex. So we don't need to get into all of that. This is just brushing the surface of it. But something I want you to do, I'm going to put a link in here. It's a test that you can take online to test your hidden biases. And in it, you'll click on the link and you can continue as a guest. I just go in as a guest, and then I tried this again today just to make sure it was all working. There's going to be a bunch of questions about like COVID and stuff. You can skip those. And then you'll get to the part where you have to answer questions. And then when you're done with all of it, it'll tell you like if you have like a slight bias towards a group or however, like whatever, depending on what you selected. And so then you can just begin to be aware of like, oh, wow, I do have a bias, slight or whatever, or maybe you don't. I want this to be in the space of understanding and compassion, and that we use this to better ourselves. We use this as an opportunity to bring awareness. We're shining a light on an area that might be uncomfortable. And once we have that light shined on it, we're going to do something about it. We're going to have compassion. We're going to understand like, wow, if it comes up that you have a bias against something, that's the first step. So then you can uncover what's that about, why might that be, and how might that be playing out in your life. And so then what are the next steps? How can I expose myself? How can I have a different understanding? Because the real idea here is to lessen our biases, to be more neutral minded, so that we can treat everyone with as much compassion and empathy as possible, because that's the golden rule. We want to be treated that way too. We want people to see us individually for our own unique magnificence, and that's everyone. So I hope that it's not too heavy. I trust that you'll be able to do this and to discover those things about yourself, so that it can be a step in a direction to more positive relationships and understanding of yourself, and making this world a better place. So let me know, email me if you've done this, and if you have any questions about this topic or the test. All right, thank you.